I heard the scream before I saw her. And buddy, if you've ever wondered what pure, unfiltered panic looks like, it's a woman in a neon tracksuit, arms flailing, tearing across your pasture with a 2,000-pound Angus bull hot on her heels. That's how my day started. There was Karen, yes, that Karen from the HOA, hightailing it across my field, shrieking like she'd stumbled into the gates of hell. But it wasn't the devil chasing her. It was Samson, my gentle giant bull who, as fate would have it, doesn't take kindly to strangers cutting through his territory. You ever stand in your slippers, mug of coffee in hand, and watch someone who just tried to take over your land get a lesson in humility from a four-legged, snorting lawnmower? I just stood there, dumbstruck, watching her designer sun hat go flying, her clipboard snap in two, wondering if I ought to call the sheriff or just start selling tickets for the next show. Thing is, it all started just the day before. Karen showed up at my front gate, uninvited as usual, armed with a binder thicker than the Sunday paper, all about community improvement. New president of the HOA, she was flashing that title around like a badge. She came at me with this sweet-as-sugar smile, telling me the board had voted to create a new walking trail right through the middle of my ranch. Now, my family's been on this land since before the HOA was even a twinkle in a real estate developer's eye. I told her, as politely as I could manage, that we weren't interested in joining their manicure and mulch brigade, especially when my cattle roamed wherever they pleased. That smile of hers? It twitched, then vanished. She called me selfish, accused me of standing in the way of community wellness. I said, cutting across private property isn't an improvement, Karen. It's trespassing. She stormed off in a huff, binder waving, muttering something about making it happen with or without my blessing. Most folks would have let it go at that. But Karen? No, she was built different. She wanted control. So when I woke up the next morning to a strange beeping sound by the fence, I didn't think much at first. Maybe a coyote tripping the sensor. But when I pulled up my security camera, there she was, neon pink tracksuit, sunglasses, and a pair of industrial bolt cutters, laughing to herself as she clipped my fence clean through, not a care in the world. What she didn't know was that the southern pasture belonged to Samson. Samson, bottle-fed, hand-raised, gentle as a dog with my kids. But if you walk into his space reeking of lavender perfume and HOA entitlement, you might as well have rung a dinner bell for trouble. By the time I raced over, it was too late. The fence was wide open, fresh footprints heading straight across the field. That's when I heard that scream, the kind that rattles your teeth, and saw Karen flying over the ridge like she'd just robbed a hornet's nest. Hot on her heels was Samson, ears pinned, snorting like a freight train, eyes locked on the trespasser. My ranch hand, Miguel, was up on the barn roof and leaned over, deadpan as ever. Think she's fast enough to make it to the gate? I just shook my head. Depends how many yoga classes she skipped. Now, Samson isn't out for blood. He's got a sense of humor, really. He chased her in circles, kicked up a dust storm so thick she tripped and face-planted right into a patch of horse nettles. By the time I caught up, she was scraped, bruised, and spitting mad, accusing me of letting a wild beast attack her. I reminded her, calmly, that she'd cut my fence, trespassed, and waltzed into a pasture with a bull. She tried to stand, slipped, and started threatening lawsuits, like her HOA badge was going to mean squat against Texas livestock law. I called the sheriff, not to press charges, but to get the mess on record. Sheriff Dawson, friend of the family, nearly spit out his coffee watching the security footage. He told Karen, "Ma'am, that bull's got more right to be here than you do." She sputtered about suing everyone, me, the sheriff, even Samson. Dawson offered her a ride home or a trip to the ER. She sulked off, but word spread like wildfire, especially after my cousin posted the footage online. Pretty soon, Samson was the town hero, the HOA Avenger, they called him. Memes, viral videos, even the local feed store offering him a cowboy hat for a photo op. Karen went quiet, but I knew better than to think she'd give up. People like that don't disappear, they reload. Sure enough, next morning, Karen's white SUV rolled up again, this time with backup, a man in a polo with a clipboard and a woman in sunglasses who looked like she'd never smiled in her life. Karen, ankle in a brace now, limped to my gate like she was entering a courtroom, shouting that she was here to document damages caused by my aggressive livestock. I blinked, then laughed. Asked if she really brought an HOA trauma assessor to private land again. She claimed emergency review protocols gave her the right. I pointed her toward the no trespassing sign and told her to read it on her way out. She started filming, narrating that I was endangering the community and harboring dangerous animals. Her friend zoomed in on Samson, who promptly did his business for the camera. Perfect timing. I brought out the county maps, laid out the property line, showed her the deed that proved my land had never belonged to the HOA, predated their subdivision by 3 decades. If you want to contest it, I said, take it up with the county surveyor. He's my cousin Jimmy. Karen's face went red as a fire truck. She threatened a formal grievance. That's when I realized this wasn't about fences or bulls anymore. It was about power. Karen was hell-bent on proving she could bend anyone to her will, even if it meant trampling over the law. So I called Dawson again. He told me Karen had already called, tried to report Samson as a wild animal. He told her unless the bull was running loose at the playground, there wasn't much he could do. We upped security, more cameras, motion detectors, and a new sign. Live bull, not friendly. Trespassers may be chased or filmed. Didn't take long before I caught her crew back at the fence, tossing apples at Samson to lure him over. He ignored them, just watched, snorted, waited for the next round. Uploaded that footage too. Reddit went nuts. Folks joked Karen was filming Karens versus livestock, rural justice. Some even started a petition to make Samson the mascot of the anti-HOA resistance. But it stopped being funny when the official letter came. Karen's grievance, printed on HOA letterhead, listing 7 infractions from my hostile animal to my intimidating fence. It was nonsense, but it was organized nonsense. I brought it straight to my lawyer, Denise. She's wrangled more cattle and insurance claims than anyone I know. She skimmed it, rolled her eyes, and asked, "You want to hit back or hit hard?" I said both. We countersued for trespassing, property damage, harassment, and livestock endangerment. Denise threw in a restraining order, just for good measure. 2 days later, Karen got served while walking her dog right by my new warning signs. Word is, she turned beet red, threatened to sue the county, and maybe even the bull. From that point, everything changed. Folks at the feed store hung a printout of the viral chase in their window, captioned, "This bull's got better judgment than any HOA board." Karen launched a glossy pamphlet campaign, painting Samson as a menace and herself as a neighborhood hero. But nobody was buying it anymore. Neighbors who kept their heads down started stepping up, sharing stories of how Karen had pushed them, fined them, bullied them for petty infractions. Denise built a case not just for me, but for every neighbor Karen had railroaded. The town council finally stepped in. Even the mayor dropped by, basket of honey in hand, shaking his head at the whole circus. "Your bull's got more sense than half our council meetings," he said. By the time the court date rolled around, the courthouse was packed, folks in lawn chairs like it was the 4th of July. Karen made a show of her neck brace, and her lawyer looked ready to bolt. The judge, old and crusty, cut through the drama like barbed wire. Denise laid out everything. The footage, the property lines, the neighbor statements, the online circus. Karen's defense was all bluster. She claimed Samson had been trained to attack, that I'd orchestrated a smear campaign via livestock. The judge asked, "You suggesting a bull's got a grudge?" The room nearly burst out laughing. When a verdict came, it wasn't close. Damages awarded, court order in place. Karen and the HOA barred from coming within 300 feet of my land. They had to repair the fence, pay legal fees, issue a written apology, and replace every bit of property they'd touched, under my supervision. Outside the courthouse, Karen melted down, blaming everyone from the judge to the sheriff to me. She hurled her clipboard at the steps and screamed, "This community doesn't deserve me." That's the clip that made the evening news. Within days, her resignation landed, effective immediately. The HOA board issued a statement vowing to focus on reasonable projects from now on. They even invited me to speak at a town hall about rural boundaries. I declined, but hosted a picnic instead, Neighbors, kids, even the mayor, all eating burgers while Samson grazed contentedly behind a freshly fortified fence. That day, standing by the pasture, watching the sun set, I felt a strange sense of peace. Samson wasn't just a bull anymore. He was a symbol of boundaries you don't cross, of small-town grit, of standing up when the world tells you to back down. He chased entitlement off its high horse without ever saying a word. And as I walked the fence line that night, checking posts, sensors, every inch of boundary, I realized something. Sometimes justice comes in a courtroom, sometimes in a pasture, and sometimes in the silent, steadfast presence of a 2,000-pound friend. If you come onto this land uninvited, well, you might just leave with a story the whole county will remember. So here's my question for you. Where do you draw the line? Is standing up for what's yours worth the headache, the fight, the spectacle? Or is it better to let things slide for the sake of community peace? Drop your thoughts below, share your own wild HOA stories, and let's talk about where justice truly belongs. Because on this ranch, respect isn't optional. It's earned. And if you forget, well, Samson will be happy to remind you why that fence is there in the first place.